Hey everyone, and I am, as usual, I'm a couple minutes late getting this going, but we're here together now, and I'm glad that you could be here. Now, we are going to do something that we haven't done ever. Yeah, we haven't done it ever. Now, I have to get my camera angle set up because I did not do it before we got together, and I think that's going to be almost okay. Okay. Now you're going to be able to see what's going on over here. Now, first thing we are going to do is we're going to get our vegetable soup going. Now, this is a beautiful, warm, spicy, all of the nice warm spices that are in curry. Now, I'm using TSL Organics curry powder, of course. That's not a surprise, right? Now, if you're listening, if you've been here before, let me know that you're here again. If you are here for the first time, let me know that too. I love to know who's joining me. Okay, now let's make some soup. Now, the first thing we are going to do is we're going to take the frying pan off the burner because we need a pot first. Okay, now in this pot, we are going to put all our vegetables. Now, I will explain that frying pan to you in a few minutes. But for right now, we're just going to set it aside, and we will use that in a little bit. Now, in this frying pan, first thing we're going to do is we are going to add 1 tablespoon of coconut oil. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but you can get different kinds of coconut oil. You can get coconut oil that tastes like butter, which I gotta tell you is delicious. Okay, there, I think we've got it now. Now, you want to turn your burner on about a medium heat because what we are going to do is we're going to cook these vegetables down a little bit, let them get nice and browned, and browning them the way we're going to do is going to give our soup a lot more flavor. Okay, so let the coconut oil melt, and while that's happening, we are going to get our onions chopped up. Now, 1 medium onion is about what you need. These are little bitty onions that I got at a local farmer's market. So a wonderful lady named Yabu grows incredible vegetables, and these are out of the produce that she brings to the market, and I just could not pass them up because I know how delicious they're going to be. And I am not going to waste even a little bit. Now, when we got together on, what day? Was it on Friday? And I said, if you have a little bit of green on your onion, for presentation's sake, you may not want to use it. Now, that's only for presentation. It does not matter one lick when you're doing it for a soup, because we're not going to see it anyway, but we'll get to that in a little while. Now, good morning, Evelyn. Oh, yes, curry soup is absolutely lovely. Now, if you have, I'm not going to be a very good salesperson here because I'm always telling you guys about my TSL Organics line of spices, and I am very proud of them, but I will tell you this: if you have curry powder in your cabinet and it's less than a year old or less than a year and a half old, please use that up first. Don't buy anything from me until you've used what's in your cupboard, because spices deserve to be, oh my goodness, I'm going to chop my fingers off here this morning. Spices deserve to be treated with respect. Okay, now this is starting to smoke, so that's nice and hot. Now I'm also going to add, so I'm putting in 100 grams of onions and 200 grams of zucchini. Now you can see this zucchini is all chopped up. Now you can make this a little bit, oh, there, my brain just took a vacation. You can make this a little bit hotter. You can make it with more vegetables, less vegetables, whatever it is you want to do, but make sure that you sear these vegetables, and we want to get a nice caramelization on them because that just gives us so much extra flavor. Okay, now we don't want them to burn, so we're going to give this a stir. And as we get the other onions cut here, we're going to toss those in. Now the other thing that we're going to add to this, and this is totally optional. So if you do not like onions, or if you don't like mushrooms, you're not going to want to add the next ingredient. And it's fine. Now this is getting a little hotter than I want, so I'm going to turn it down. But you can see that the onions are browning. Those are going to be absolutely delicious. And the zucchini is going to be cooking down. Now in a vegetable soup, a lot of times you roast the vegetables first, and you could do that with this as well. But I like to cook them in a little bit of coconut oil because it gives it so much flavor. Now, back to the coconut oil. You can get butter flavored coconut oil. You can also get deodorized coconut oil. So if you don't like the flavor of coconut, that doesn't mean that you can't use coconut oil because it is wonderfully delicious. Okay, now we have our onions in here. And the onions and the zucchini are going to take the longest to cook, so we want to get those in there first. Oh, and that is looking beautiful. Can you see this? It is looking lovely. Okay, now that we have that done, into our compost pail with the ends of those, now I'm going to put in 50 grams of mushrooms. Now this is, okay, well, maybe 35 grams of mushrooms. Okay. Now, these do not have to be cut beautifully. We just want them cut enough that they're going to go in the pot and cook down with the rest of the vegetables. And I will show you why in a little while, why it doesn't matter if they're cooked perfectly or not. Okay, so let's get this in here. Now again, when you are making soup, use the vegetables that you love. So if you don't like mushrooms, do not put mushrooms in. If you don't like, now I'm using button mushrooms today, and that is absolutely fine. But if you don't like button mushrooms, you like, I don't know, cremini mushrooms instead, use those. Different mushrooms are going to change the flavor of this just a wee little bit. Okay, now we're going to leave that cooking, and while that's happening, oh, I forgot one thing. So we need about 15 grams of grated ginger. Now this is fresh grated ginger. You could use dried ginger, I suppose, if you wanted, but fresh grated ginger has that ginger juice, and it is absolutely lovely. And right now, while this is cooking, because I want this to have a chance to incorporate, we're going to put in a teaspoon of TSL Organics curry powder. I am quite proud of this curry powder because it's about a medium, maybe a little less than a medium curry. So we're going to get all of these vegetables in here cooking together, and in a couple of minutes I'm going to add garlic to it. You want the garlic to be the last thing you put in because you want the garlic just to be getting fragrant. You don't want it browned. It ends up getting bitter when it's browned. So while we are waiting for that, we're going to make our pork meatballs. Now, of course, as usual, she forgot something that she needed in the cupboard. Oh well. See, this is what happens when I don't have my production crew here, but he's not here. He's on the road working. Now, I've got to make sure that we keep stirring this. Oh, look at this. This is beautiful. And those vegetables are getting all nice and caramelized. Okay, now that is about where we want them. You don't want the vegetables cooked to death. So, usually I mince my garlic. And you guys know that. And so the finer garlic is chopped, the more forward the garlic flavor is going to be. So two things are true today. First of all, I want that garlic flavor to really be apparent. Second of all, Dell's not home, so I can make it as garlicky as I want. So I'm using my garlic press today, and I'm doing that because you get a really fine garlic mince. You need to have some muscles to do this. And look at how fine this garlic mince is. Comes out of the garlic press. Just slick if you please. Now, I'm going to set this aside for right now without opening it. Oh, well, I'm going to show you though. There is virtually nothing left in there. Just the garlic skin. And I'm going to close that up and set it aside, and I will clean that out a little later. I'm going to close it up because I don't want things to dry out. Now, that is about where we want it. So now we are going to add a teaspoon of salt. I know for this little bit, a teaspoon seems like a lot, but stay with me. It is not going to be a lot. Okay. Get this in there. And now we are going to add 2 cups of chicken stock or bone broth. Bone broth definitely would be best. And we are just going to let this simmer a little bit. And let all of those flavors get incorporated in there, and I will show you what happens next in a couple of minutes. Okay, now, mouse out of the way. Last thing you want is a mouse in the way in the kitchen, right? Okay, so I have 200 grams of pork, ground pork. Now, ground pork is wonderful because it's a very, very mild flavor, so it's going to keep whatever flavors you add to it. And so today we're going to add curry and salt and pepper and a little bit of almond flour, and we're going to make this into beautiful meatballs. And while this soup is sitting and resting and getting all of the flavors are getting to know each other, we're going to be making some curried meatballs to put in the soup. Now, if you're a vegetarian and you want to do this vegetarian style, by all means, don't do the meatballs, or do them however you do vegetarian meatballs. Not sure that that's a thing. Okay, so in a separate container. Now, I do not want lumps of spices in my meatballs. That's really important. So I'm going to take 2 tablespoons of almond flour. Now, this is Kirkland almond flour. I tell you guys about this all the time. You can get it at Costco. It is absolutely the most economical way that I've found to buy almond flour. So I highly recommend it. If you've got another brand that you prefer, by all means, do it that way. So 2 tablespoons of almond flour is going in here, and 1 teaspoon of TSL curry powder. Now I'm watching this soup because I don't want it to boil. I want it to simmer. You don't want to be boiling away all the fragrances and yumminess. Okay, now salt and pepper. Teaspoon of salt-ish. Now a little more, a little less. These are your meatballs, so do them the way you do them. You do you. I've been using that phrase a lot this week. You do you. Now, okay, we're going to do this a different way. I do not throw out spice containers. I save them and I reuse them. So this may not say TSL Organics on it, but trust me, it has TSL Organics pepper in it. Okay, so we have salt, pepper, curry powder, and to this we are going to add about a tablespoon again of fresh ginger. Now I want to show you something about ginger that a lot of people don't know. And I used to do this, stand here and I'm painstakingly trying to peel the ginger. You don't have to do that. Take a knife, or a spoon, just a normal teaspoon, and just scrape your ginger like this, and the skin comes right off. Makes it so much easier to peel your ginger. Now the little knobblies on there, you're probably going to have to do something with that. But if that's the only thing that you have to worry about peeling, that's not really that big a deal. Now you're going to need, for a tablespoon, you're going to need about a 3-ounce or a 3-inch piece of ginger peeled. And don't peel more than you need because it will go bad and you don't want it to go to waste. Now, who wants to guess what else I forgot to get to have sitting here? I did not bring my grater. But that's okay because I can grab it from right here. Now, we have talked many times about using a microplane. And my microplane is absolutely one of my best friends. I am not using it on ginger. Ginger is very, very fibrous. So as wonderful as a microplane is, it's wonderful for things that are not fibrous. So lime zest, lemon zest, anything like that. Now this is starting to boil, so I'm going to turn it off because that is not what we want. And look at how beautiful and golden that is. The curry flavor, or the curry powder, is not only flavoring it, but coloring it. So that is incredible. Now we're just going to leave that sit there. And using the small side of your grater. Now you don't want to use the big ones that you would use for cheese. Use the small one. It's the closest that you have on your grater to a microplane. If you don't have the small scooped ones, you don't want to use the little star-shaped ones. Not going to work well. Okay, but this is going to work very well. And we're just going to grate this ginger. You don't want to mince this because mincing it you're going to get bigger pieces and smaller pieces unless your knife skills are crazy good. Mine are pretty good, but they're not that good. Okay, now let's see if we have a tablespoon. I would say that is pretty darn close to a tablespoon. Now this is wet, so it's going straight into the pork. Get that, oh, that ginger smells lovely. Fresh ginger. There's not a whole lot that smells better. Yep, it is wonderful. Okay, now we have our fresh ginger in the bowl. We have salt and pepper, curry powder in the dish. We're going to add an egg. And then we're going to get this all mixed up. So guess what happens next since we're making meatballs? Yeah, that's it. You know it. I do not do raw meat on my hands. Can't do it. We are, however, going to get this over here and get it ready to start heating. Now when you cook meat, when you first put it in the pot, it is very possibly going to stick a little bit. That's okay. Don't worry about that. Now in this, we used coconut oil in the last one, but I want to empty out my bacon container. And so where is my, there it is. Okay, so we are going to use a little bit of bacon fat in here. And I mean, bacon fat is good with anything, but it is going to be wonderful in here with pork. Okay, so you can't get that much cleaner, so I'm going to have to cook some more bacon to get me some more bacon fat. Now that is going to get warmed up in a minute. Oh, and I just did that, but those are all mixed. So using the almond flour to mix those spices in, make sure that you're not going to get a hot spot in your meatballs. Okay, now you can make these meatballs as big or as small as you want. There are no rules when it comes to making your meatballs. You can add more curry, more salt. You want sweet and sour meatballs, you can add a little bit of sweetener, some erythritol. I don't know that I would add stevia to this. I'm not a fan of stevia. I like the properties of stevia, not a fan of the flavor of stevia. So what kind of sweetener do you use? If you're using a powdered sweetener, do you use straight erythritol, monk fruit, stevia? What's your favorite? Share in the comments. Now we're going to get this going, get it heating up. Okay, we want it on about 5 just to get it heated up, and then we'll turn it down a bit. Now I'm going to make these meatballs quite small. And I'm going to make them quite small because I want them to cook quickly so that we can possibly have a bite of soup together. So they're going to be more like the little meatballs that you get in an Italian wedding soup. A little bigger than that, but... Okay, so we've got this oil heating up in here. We're going to let it just get to the point where it's smoking hot a little bit. You don't want it too hot. Okay, things are starting to sizzle in here, the little bits that were in the bacon fat. So I am going to start throwing my little meatballs in here. Now, do these in your air fryer if you want. If you do them in your air fryer, they are going to come out beautifully. And they're going to be browned on all 4 sides. But I didn't want to do that to your ears today. Okay, so we're going to get a few little meatballs in here, cooking almost the same size. They don't have to be perfect. Now, you know, the thing about meat is while you are doing the mix for it, you can't do a taste test. With some foods you can. With the soup we certainly could. We could taste it and see if it's too salty, not salty enough. But with this you can't. So you have to trust your nose. So when you're doing this, smell it. Can you smell the ginger? Smell the curry? Is it as strong as you want it to be? Okay, little itty bitty meatballs going in here. Now these are going to finish cooking in the soup if you don't get them quite all the way done in here. So we're going to get a few of these in here, and then I'm going to show you what happens next with the soup. Okay. Now, these little meatballs are going to be delicious. Now, a lot of times I've told you that I use ground pork rinds, and I didn't do that in here because the ground pork rinds can come out in the soup if they're right on the top of the... I think that's going to be enough for right now. So I'll take these gloves off, put them back on in a bit. Okay, so... Oh my goodness, they are not wanting to come off. Alright, I'm going to show you a trick with these. Do you use these gloves? Yeah, well, that should have worked. Okay, well, these apparently are determined to stick to my hand. There we go. Done deal. Okay, now let's get these things flipping around here because we don't want them burnt. But you'll see, once they have caramelized a little bit on the edge, they just flip right over. They're not stuck to the pan. They release once you get that caramelization on there. And we're just going to flip these around a little bit. And these are going to cook through quickly. So, while these are cooking through, what are we going to do with this soup to finish it off? Well, I'm going to show you, but I'm going to be nice to you today because I was on top of it. Now, if you have a blender, I want you to put the soup that we've just made in the blender because we're going to change this into this beautiful, silky, creamy soup. Okay, now, if you don't have a blender, if all you have, a piece of pork, we'll throw that in there. If all you have is an immersion blender, use that. If you have, for a blender, if you have a, what are they called? The bullet, do not use those. When you're putting something hot in your blender, you need to make sure that there's room for the steam escape to escape, or you are going to end up having it blow up on you, and that's the last thing you want. So those little bullet blenders, they are awesome for doing things that are cold. They are not awesome for this. Please don't use it. It is a real safety risk. Now, I could throw this in the blender, and I'm not going to do that to your ears. So, because I love you guys so much for joining me here today, we're going to do this a different way. I have a pot ready. Now, I did this with my immersion blender, and you can see that it is nice and creamy and just velvety smooth. Now, it may be a little bit more if you do it in your big blender, but this is perfect. And now to this, we are going to add, let me make sure I've got my milliliters right, 166 milliliters of coconut milk. So this is just a small can of coconut milk. If you have some in your fridge already, don't open a new can, use it up for sure. But this coconut milk is going to make this even creamier and even yummier, and it's going to be a beautiful addition to this. Now, those meatballs are just frying up a little bit more while we get this in here. And then we're going to put this back on the burner. And we're just going to get this coconut milk cooked in here. We're just going to re-warm this enough that it's going to get this coconut milk all warmed in there. And then to this, we are going to add, so that it has a little bit of time to get to know the rest of the soup, we're going to add our meatballs and a little bit more of that. Well, that's not the best idea in the world, is it? So we'll just set that down here. Okay, now we're going to turn this on 3. There we go. And we're just going to let this warm. And while we're doing that, make sure that you get the sides scraped down so everything is in there. And you can put this in a soup tureen if you want to serve it to a group and want it beautiful on the table. You can do that, or just dish it into your bowl. Now I am going to get rid of this. I do miss my production crew. Things do not just appear and disappear when he's not here. I have to do it myself. Now, you know what we have not talked about today? We have not talked about coffee. I hope you showed up with a great big steaming cup of coffee. Sugar-free buttered rum in my coffee today. And it is wonderful. I love it. Now, we're just going to let this warm. And while that's warming, we're going to get something a little bit extra to put on top of it. Some Gailey sour cream. Now you can add a little bit of goat cheese to this. You can add a little bit of mint, parsley, cilantro, whatever you want to garnish it. And to be honest with you, I had planned on garnishing this with some fresh mint, but I did not get out to my garden to get my mint picked. So there's that. Okay, now this is, we want it just to be steaming, and it is just starting to steam. I can see the steam coming off of it. So we're just going to turn that off because we don't need to cook it. It's already cooked. Now, any good chef, or bad chef, whichever, is never going to serve anything to their guests without doing a taste test. So, why don't we do that together? Now, I am not going to dish up a lot of this. I'm going to dish up a wee little bit because it is not time for me to eat yet, but I will be having this for lunch this afternoon, or supper, whatever it turns into. Now, you want your sour cream. When you buy Gailey sour cream, this is really, really thick. It isn't the thin wimpy stuff that's all just thickened with cornstarch. So whip this up a little bit just so that you don't have yucky looking lumps in it. And you can add as much as you, or as little as you want, or none at all if you don't want any. Now there you go. That is a beautiful bowl of curry soup with pork meatballs. Should we taste it? I'm thinking we should. And does she have a spoon? Not so much, but now I do. I get to be my own production crew. I think I'm okay at it. Not as good as the other guy that I had, but you know, maybe he'll be here next time. So a little bit of the sour cream in this bite, a meatball, a little bit of the curry soup. This is the perfect thing for a chilly day in the fall in Alberta, or any other day as far as that goes. You and your family are not going to be sorry as long as they like curry. This is awesome. I am so grateful that you joined me today. Now, whether you're here live or you're watching this after the fact, leave some comments. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you've tried this recipe. It is a wonderful recipe. You can double it, triple it, quadruple it, whatever you want to do. Meatballs can be as big or as small as you want. Let me know how you make it your own. Thank you for joining me today. Please do your very best to live your best version of this shining life. And I will see you here Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. And we'll see what we're doing on Wednesday. Thank you for being here, everyone. And I am going to sign off because I have, and I am not kidding you, 30 pounds of cucumbers that I need to go and turn into pickles. That's how I roll. Talk to you on Wednesday.